Arrival of the Zorgans. The day the Zorgans arrived started like any other. People went about their lives, blissfully unaware of the impending doom hurtling towards Earth at unimaginable speeds. Deep in the recesses of space, the Zorgan invasion fleet cut through the void, their singular purpose to conquer and subjugate. Earth's early warning systems blared to life as the alien ships entered the solar system. Panic gripped the nations of the world as the reality of the situation sank in. This was not a friendly first contact, but an all-out assault on humanity's very existence. The Zorgans wasted no time, their advanced weapons cutting through Earth's defenses like a hot knife through butter. The great cities of the world, once bustling with life, were reduced to smoldering ruins in a matter of hours. Millions perished in the initial onslaught, the lucky ones vaporized instantly by the searing heat of Zorgan plasma cannons. Amidst the chaos and destruction, a single transmission beamed across every frequency, the guttural voice of the Zorgan commander echoing in the minds of all who heard it. People of Earth, your feeble resistance is futile. Surrender now and your lives may be spared. Continue to fight and face annihilation. But the people of Earth, for all their flaws and differences, shared one unifying trait: an unbreakable spirit. In the face of utter devastation, they did not cower. They did not yield. Instead, they banded together, determined to fight for their right to exist, no matter the cost. As the dust settled on the first day of the invasion, the survivors emerged from the rubble, bloodied but unbroken. The Zorgans had expected an easy victory, a swift conquest of a primitive species. They were about to learn the hard way that humans were anything but primitive when it came to matters of survival and defiance. The war for Earth had begun, and the Zorgans were in for the fight of their lives. Shattered defiance. In the aftermath of the Zorgans' devastating initial assault, Earth lay in ruins. The great cities that once stood as testaments to human ingenuity and progress were now nothing more than piles of twisted metal and shattered concrete. The alien invaders had struck with ruthless efficiency, their advanced technology overwhelming Earth's defenses in a matter of hours. But even in the face of such overwhelming odds, pockets of human resistance emerged from the ashes. These brave men and women, soldiers and civilians alike, refused to bend the knee to their alien oppressors. They gathered in secret, scavenging what weapons and supplies they could, determined to fight back against the Zorgan menace. One such group, a ragtag band of survivors and soldiers, hunkered down in the ruins of an abandoned factory on the outskirts of what was once New York City. Led by Captain Sarah Briggs, a battle-hardened veteran of the United States Marine Corps, they plotted and planned, waiting for the right moment to strike back against the invaders. Their opportunity came sooner than expected. A Zorgan patrol, overconfident in their victory, ventured too close to the factory. Briggs and her team, armed with makeshift explosives and salvage weapons, launched a daring ambush. The aliens, caught off guard by the ferocity of the human attack, fell back in disarray. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. As word of the successful ambush spread through the resistance network, other groups took heart. They too began to launch their own attacks, striking at the Zorgans whenever and wherever they could. But the Zorgans were quick to respond. They tightened their grip on the conquered territories, deploying more troops and cracking down on any sign of dissent. The resistance fighters were forced to adapt, to become more cunning and more cautious in their operations. Yet for every human fighter that fell, two more seemed to take their place. The Zorgan commander, watching from the bridge of his flagship in orbit, began to realize that the human spirit would not be so easily extinguished. These primitives, these humans, were proving to be far more resilient than he had anticipated. As the resistance continued to grow, the stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but of the entire human race. The Zorgans may have had superior technology, but the humans had something far more powerful, an unbreakable will to survive and to protect their own. The war had only just begun, and the humans were determined to fight to the bitter end. Ingenuity sparks hope. In hidden laboratories and makeshift workshops across the globe, human scientists and engineers worked tirelessly to unravel the secrets of Zorgan technology. They knew that to stand a chance against the alien invaders, they would need to level the playing field. Dr. Lena Sorensen, a brilliant physicist who had narrowly escaped the destruction of her research facility, led one such team. Her group had managed to salvage a downed Zorgan scout ship and now pored over its advanced systems, trying to reverse engineer the alien tech for human use. It was painstaking work, every small victory hard-won. The Zorgan systems were unlike anything the human scientists had ever encountered, their very operating principles seeming to defy known laws of physics. But Sorensen and her team persevered, driven by a desperate need to find something, anything that could turn the tide of the war. Their breakthrough came after weeks of tireless effort. While studying the Zorgan ship's energy shielding, they discovered a small but potentially exploitable flaw. The shields, while incredibly powerful, seemed to operate on a specific frequency. If a weapon could be designed to disrupt that frequency, it might be possible to pierce the Zorgan defenses. News of the discovery spread quickly through the resistance network. In hidden bases and bunkers, plans were drawn up for a coordinated global counterattack. If they could strike simultaneously at key Zorgan strongholds, using weapons designed to exploit the shield weakness, they might just have a chance. Hope, a commodity so rare in these dark times, began to grow. The resistance fighters, so long on the back foot, now had a glimmer of a chance. They knew the risks, knew that many of them likely wouldn't survive the coming battle. But they also knew that this was perhaps their only opportunity to strike a decisive blow against the invaders. As the plans for the counterattack took shape, the resistance prepared. Weapons were forged, alliances were strengthened, and prayers were whispered. The humans knew that the coming days would decide the fate of their species. They had been knocked down, but they were not out. They would rise, they would fight, and they would show the Zorgans the true strength of the human spirit. For in the face of annihilation, they had found unity. In the depths of despair, they had found hope. And now, with the light of a new dawn on the horizon, they would find victory. Or they would die trying. The embers reignite. The day of the counterattack dawned, and with it, a renewed sense of purpose swept through the human resistance. In hidden bases and bunkers across the globe, fighters armed themselves, checked and rechecked their equipment. There was a palpable sense of electricity in the air, a shared knowledge that this was the moment they had been waiting for. At a predetermined signal, the resistance struck. In a coordinated wave of attacks, human fighters emerged from the shadows, striking at key Zorgan fortifications with a ferocity that caught the aliens off guard. The weapons the scientists had designed proved their worth, the disruption frequencies piercing the Zorgan shields and allowing human weapons to find their marks. In Paris, a team led by former French Special Forces operative Jacques Dubois stormed the Zorgan command center that had been set up in the ruins of the Eiffel Tower. In Tokyo, a group of Japanese resistance fighters, guided by the brilliant tactical mind of Hikari Sato, managed to take down a Zorgan weapons factory. Similar scenes played out in cities across the world as the human resistance took the fight to their alien oppressors. For the first time since the invasion began, the Zorgans found themselves on the back foot. Their shield technology compromised, their fortifications under attack, they struggled to mount an effective defense. In orbit, the Zorgan fleet reeled as several of their capital ships fell prey to the Resistance's new weapons. But the Zorgans were not so easily defeated. Enraged by the audacity of the human resistance, the Zorgan commander ordered an escalation of force. From the flagship, a barrage of orbital strikes rained down on human cities, causing devastation on an unimaginable scale. Millions perished in the blink of an eye, as the Zorgans demonstrated the true extent of their destructive power. It was a brutal reminder of the stakes of this war. The Zorgans, for all the damage the Resistance had inflicted, still held the upper hand. They could afford to lose a few fortifications, a few ships. The humans, on the other hand, were fighting for their very survival. As the dust settled from the orbital bombardment, the Resistance took stock. They had struck a blow, yes, but at a terrible cost. Their cities lay in ruin, their numbers decimated. But in the face of such overwhelming adversity, they found strength in each other. They had shown that the Zorgans were not invincible. They had shown that humanity, for all its flaws and divisions, could unite in the face of a common threat. And now, as they regrouped and tended to their wounds, they knew that the fight was far from over. The embers of resistance, so long smoldering in the ashes of defeat, had been reignited. The humans would continue to fight, continue to resist, until their dying breath. For this was their home, their planet. And they would not surrender it, not while a single human still drew breath. The battle had been lost, but the war was not yet over. The humans would rise from the ashes, would adapt and overcome, as they always had. And the Zorgans would learn, to their peril, the true strength of the human spirit. From the ashes, in the aftermath of the Zorgans' devastating orbital strikes, the Earth lay shattered. Great swathes of the planet were now little more than irradiated wastelands, the once vibrant cities reduced to haunting mausoleums of broken concrete and twisted metal. The human death toll was staggering, the blow to morale even more so. But even in the face of such devastating losses, the human spirit endured. In hidden bunkers and underground shelters, the survivors regrouped, tended to their wounds, and mourned their fallen comrades. And then, with a grim determination that had come to define their species, they began to plan their next move. Central to these plans was a daring gambit proposed by Dr. Sorensen and her team. They had continued to study the Zorgan technology, even as the world burned around them, and had made a startling discovery. The Zorgan ships, for all their advanced technology, were vulnerable to a specific type of electromagnetic pulse. If they could construct a weapon capable of generating such a pulse, they might be able to disable the entire Zorgan fleet in one fell swoop. It was a long shot, but it was the best chance they had. And so, in secret facilities across the globe, the Resistance began to work. They scavenged what technology they could from downed Zorgan ships, repurposed human tech where they could. Slowly, painstakingly, they constructed their weapon, a makeshift EMP device cobbled together from the ruins of their once great civilization. As the weapon neared completion, a plan began to take shape. They would need to get the device into range of the Zorgan fleet, which meant getting it aboard the alien flagship. It was a suicide mission, but there was no shortage of volunteers. Every man and woman in the Resistance knew what was at stake. They were fighting not just for their own lives, but for the future of their species. In the end, a strike team was assembled, led by Captain Briggs and composed of the Resistance's best and brightest. They prepared to embark on what was likely to be a one-way trip. They said their goodbyes, made their peace, and then, in a stolen Zorgan shuttle, they set off towards the stars. The journey to the flagship was harrowing, every moment fraught with danger. But the humans were nothing if not resourceful. They managed to slip past the Zorgan defenses, to dock with the flagship undetected. And then, with a fierce battle cry on their lips, they stormed the alien ship, determined to complete their mission no matter the cost. The fighting was intense, the Zorgans caught off guard by the sudden human assault. Captain Briggs and her team fought their way through the ship, planting explosive charges as they went. And then, in a final act of defiance, they detonated the EMP weapon. The pulse ripped through the Zorgan fleet, shorting out systems, causing massive power failures. On the flagship, the humans fought on, even as the ship around them began to fail. They had struck their blow, had given humanity a fighting chance. Now, it was up to those left on Earth to finish the job. As the flagship began to break apart around them, Captain Briggs and her team stood tall. They had done their duty, had made the ultimate sacrifice for their species, and as the void of space claimed them, they knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. On Earth, as the Zorgan fleet fell from the skies, the Resistance emerged from the ruins. The battle was not yet won, But now, for the first time, victory seemed possible. The humans had shown that they would not go quietly into the night, that they would fight to the very end for their right to exist. The war had entered a new phase, and the humans were ready to meet it head-on. Unbroken resolve. The Zorgan fleet, crippled by the EMP, hung in Earth's orbit like a collection of broken toys. On the surface, the human resistance watched in awe as the mighty alien warships, once thought invincible, began to fall from the sky. It was a sight that instilled in them a new sense of hope, a belief that maybe, just maybe, they could win this war. But the Zorgans, even in defeat, were not to be underestimated. Those ships that were still operational turned their weapons on the Earth, determined to inflict as much damage as possible before their inevitable defeat. The human resistance, seizing the opportunity, launched an all-out offensive against the grounded Zorgan troops. The battle was fierce, the fighting intense. The Zorgans, their superior technology now largely neutralized, found themselves in a brutal ground war against a species they had severely underestimated. The humans, driven by a primal need to protect their home, fought with a savagery that surprised even the battle-hardened Zorgan warriors. In cities across the world, the story was the same. Human fighters, armed with salvaged Zorgan weapons and a fierce determination, drove the invaders back. They fought in the streets, in the ruins of their once great cities, determined to reclaim what was theirs. And then, in a final, climactic battle, the humans emerged victorious. The last of the Zorgan ground forces were defeated, their survivors retreating to their crippled ships. The Zorgan commander, his grand plans for conquest now lying in ruins, gave the order to retreat. The once proud Zorgan fleet limped away from Earth, beaten and battered, their dreams of conquest shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive. On Earth, the humans celebrated their victory. They had faced the worst the universe could throw at them and had emerged, battered but unbroken. They had proved, beyond any doubt, the indomitable nature of the human spirit. But even as they celebrated, they knew that the road ahead would be long and hard. Their cities lay in ruins, their population decimated. They would need to rebuild, to heal, to learn from this terrible ordeal. But they would rebuild. They would heal, and they would learn. For that was the nature of humanity, to rise from the ashes of defeat, to adapt and overcome no matter the odds. As the people of Earth looked to the stars, they did so with a new sense of unity, a new sense of purpose. They had seen the dangers that lurked in the cosmos, and they knew that they would need to be ready to face them. They would rebuild their cities, their societies, their technology. They would learn from the Zorgan tech, would integrate it into their own. They would build defenses, would prepare for the next threat. And when that threat came, as they knew it inevitably would, they would be ready. They would stand united, a species tempered by the fires of war, made stronger by the unbreakable bonds of shared adversity. The Zorgans had come to conquer, to subjugate. Instead, they had unwittingly forged a new era for humanity, an era of unity, of purpose, of strength. The humans had looked into the abyss, and the abyss had blinked first. As life began to return to a semblance of normalcy, memorials were held for those who had fallen. The names of the heroes who had given their lives in defense of Earth were etched into monuments, their stories passed down to future generations. They would never be forgotten, their sacrifice forever remembered as the moment when humanity stood as one against the darkness. And so, as the people of Earth looked to the future, they did so with a new sense of hope. They had faced the worst the universe had to offer, and they had emerged victorious. They knew that there would be challenges ahead, knew that the scars of the Zorgan invasion would linger for generations. But they also knew that they were ready to face those challenges head-on. They had discovered, in the crucible of war, a strength they never knew they possessed. They had forged bonds that transcended borders, transcended differences of race, of culture, of creed. They were no longer just nations, no longer just tribes. They were a species united, a species ready to take its place among the stars. They would explore, they would discover, and they would stand tall against any threat that dared to stand in their way. For they were human, and they would not be cowed. They would not be broken. They would stand, they would fight, and they would prevail.